The history of communication starts off around 1860 with modernism and the idea that truth, and the ability to convey truth, is the highest priority of human existence. This changed in 1945 with postmodernism. The highest priority isn't to convey information. The highest priority is to convey information that receives attention. Whatever you convey must be noteworthy. The ability to convey truth? That's right out the window because the only thing you're after is the attention of others. In communications, you're getting a proto-version of this with the great Satan of the 20th century, Edward Bernays, and in literature, this led to a great stylistic divergence you see in the late 40s, 50s, and continuing into the 60s due to a decision, conscious or otherwise, that style can be changed to provoke attention. It's like hot gluing Starburst to a Nintendo Power Glove, taking a picture and posting it to Reddit with the title, "Didn't know Thanos was a gamer," and then using an alt account to post the comment, "Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet was left-handed and the Nintendo Power Glove was only shipped in right-handed. Looks like we got ourselves a normie-ree." The Commodore 64, because the kids are so deprived of meaning in their lives, they'll latch on to a nostalgia for an age that happened years before they were born. I'm in love with Damascenes, the Vic and Sid are all I need, my Commodore 64C. The history of the Commodore 64 got its start around 1981 or 1982 in response to the astonishing success of the Atari 2600. The 2600 was cheap, it had games, and Atari sold a ton of them. Jack Tramiel, the then CEO of Commodore, wanted a low-cost gaming machine. An engineer came over from Japan, took the new VIC-2 chip, the then new SID chip, and built the Commodore Max. The Commodore Max was the answer to the Atari 2600. It was a low-cost gaming machine, but it had the VIC-2, a better video chip than what you could find in Commodore's then best-selling computer. It had the SID, a synthesizer on a chip that was brand new out of the MOS fab. Wrap that up with a 6510 CPU and 2 whole kilobytes of RAM, and you have the Commodore Max. The Max was limited, it didn't even have a ROM, the game cartridges were supposed to bring the RAM and ROM, and BASIC was on a cartridge. The Max didn't sell well, in fact it didn't even sell in America at all, but eventually someone at Commodore realized that if you put a little more memory in this thing, and gave it a good keyboard, you would have a successor to the VIC-20. Now keep in mind that the VIC-20 had just sold its millionth unit. The idea of creating the Commodore 64 was to replace the best-selling computer with something that was more expensive and not sell the cut-down, cheap version at all. In the business world, we call this batshit crazy. Any other CEO would have chickened out, like the tower at Old Main in Kutztown, am I right? But Jack Tramiel pushed it through, and here we are today. This model is a Commodore 64C, the cost-reduced version of the C64 released in 1986. Compared to the first breadbox C64 that rolled off the line, this version features a change in the case to bring it in line with the design language of the C128 released in 1985. The SID chip is new. Instead of the 6581, the process of the MOS fab changed, and this one is an 8580. No, the analog filters don't sound the same. There are fewer RAM chips thanks to increasingly dense memories that became available. So instead of 2 8K chips for the ROM and BASIC, everything is stuffed into a single 16K chip. The PLA and glue logic are also integrated into a larger chip. The owner of this computer replaced the case with a clear body kit because of course it needs a body kit, and uses the Tapino instead of the standard SD2IEC. It's a weird combination of mods, but over the past 2 years everyone has come out with upgrades to the C64. But this isn't a review of the new parts available to modders. This is about putting the C64 into a historical and social context. The home computer revolution gave us 8-bit machines like the C64, the Atari 800, and the Apple II, leading to the rise of 16-bit machines like the Amiga, the ST, the Macintosh, and somewhere in there you're going to have to include the IBM. This is an encyclopedic retelling of the advances of technology and a digital revolution that continues to the current day with Power and RISC-V CPUs, and now we have to mention graphics cards and chipsets. All of this history isn't actually history. It's just reading off a spec sheet someone at Byte Magazine typed up. Computer reviews aren't actually computer reviews. It's just listing specs. And that doesn't place the device under review into a historical or social context. It's like a critical analysis of a piece of literature would be counting how many times the author used the letter E. 0. The letter E was used 0 times in this book, not counting the cover, so be sure to judge it for that. This isn't even limited to tech bloggers. Look at what actual gaming historians are doing, and yes, the Angry Video Game Nerd has a new channel, and if you're getting a list of what happened, then this happened, then Sega does what Nintendo don't. This isn't history, and this isn't actually knowledge of the digital revolution, as any historian will tell you. History is putting these things into context, and to get to that, you need to go straight to the epistemological foundations of the digital revolution. Cybernetics is the study of communications between the animal and the machine, or in most cases, man and the machine. This field of study was laid out in The Human Use of Human Beings by Norbert Wiener, and the thesis is that information transmitted between machine and man forms a control system. By studying this control system, we can study man. This book was published in 1950, so in that era we're talking about census data run on old IBM mainframes, phone company records, bookings with airlines, and other tasks the first computers were built for. Communication in cybernetics is anti-entropy, and an increasing number of messages passed between machines and humans also increases order, with the subtext that an increase in information processing capability will bring about social change. The implication is that computers will enable a worldwide, liberal, social democracy. So yeah, if you've ever wondered why conservatism is correlated with resistance to new technology, there you go. I think there was a math professor at UC Berkeley that wrote something about this. When you have philosophers and cyberneticists thinking about this for a few years, and you throw in Moore's Law, all of a sudden you get the concept of a digital revolution and technological utopianism. It's literally a new renaissance. I mean, if the proximate cause of the Enlightenment is Gutenberg's invention of the printing press and the mass production of books, well, computers are going to be 10 times that. And this is what the establishment is saying. This isn't some hippy-dippy 1975 our co-op went belly up sort of stuff. The digital revolution and technological utopianism was real. Ronald Reagan, and I'm not kidding here, the Iran-Contra Ronald Reagan, the let the gays die of AIDS Ronald Reagan, said in his tear down this wall speech, oh wait, I can actually use public domain footage for this.
In the industrialized nations, a technological revolution is taking place, a revolution marked by rapid, dramatic advances in computers and telecommunications.
That's the establishment saying a revolution is coming, and it's all because computers and the messages passed between them. You don't get more establishment than Ronald Reagan, and even he's on board with it. You ever read a really old copy of Wired? That's what I'm talking about. The future is so bright, and it's so full of hope, and it's going to be amazing, and it's computers that are going to bring it to us. Oh, real fart. Everything that Douglas Engelbart, or Ted Nelson, or even Steve Jobs, everything that they said about the computer being an extension of the human mind goes right back to this. Cybernetics, digital revolution, and technological utopianism. So go back to the Commodore. In 1984, you had Apple's, and the Macintosh just came out. You had the original IBM PC Model 5150, and I don't think enough is said about a 5150 being the California code for a 72-hour involuntary psych hold. You had the Speccy, Trash 80, and the BBC Micro. Out of all of those, The Commodore 64 was the best-selling computer of all time. It was the computer for the masses, and if there was going to be a machine that brought about a technological utopia, it was going to be the Commodore 64. So how do we remember the Commodore 64 today? Well, it was a great game machine, and it could do sprites, and it had a SID chip. The chiptunes alone are second to none. The demo scene around the C64 is unmatched. This is a machine that can be pushed to its limits, and you have 3D renders with parallax in 1 kilobyte of 6502 assembly. But that's the thing. It was only popular because it was a game machine. Yeah, abusing sprites to put the boing ball on a screen is impressive, but it doesn't say anything. There's no underlying truth to a boing ball. Instead of being a machine that would have brought about a utopia, we're remembering it as a computer with this really awesome community because of the sound chip. And now we're going full circle here, because now, today, it doesn't even matter if you're working towards some higher truth. The only thing that matters is that you capture someone's attention. And yeah, the C64 had the best graphics and the best sound. That's why it's so popular. And this is the failure of the technological utopia, because it's more important to do something that people find interesting than it is to do something worthwhile.